So anyway, one thing Donald Trump has done is announced already that next Thursday he is planning to tell us who he's going to nominate to the United States Supreme Court. And that basically means that he's narrowed it down, we think, to 3 people. And we're trying to get more details on them. And that's kind of the key. We know the names, but we don't know a lot of details. We've gotten a little bit on a couple of them. This Gorsuch guy is one of them. Neil Gorsuch is one of the contenders. Judge Pryor was supposed to be one of the contenders. But I've asked Andy Schlafly to join us today. Of course, he's an attorney, and his mother is the late Phyllis Schlafly, who was a dear friend of the program and of conservatism for that matter. Andy, thank you for being our guest today.
Thank you, Mark, for having me on your great show.
It's great to have you back. So what's your reaction, first of all? What names have you heard that the president's considering for this nomination?
The 3 names are being floated are Bill Pryor, Neil Gorsuch, and Tom Hardiman. But I've heard word just recently that Trump may go outside those names. So it's part of his public vetting process, and I think we should thank Trump for having a vetting process. He's given us a week. He wants to hear how we feel about it. He's listened to the feedback, and he said a week from tomorrow he's going to decide, and he's floated these 3 names primarily, but he's saying he can go outside of them too. So it's still a bit of an open field, but we're focusing on these 3 names. One is not pro-life. That's Neil Gorsuch. The other 2, I would say, are pro-life. That's Bill Pryor and Tom Hardiman.
Okay. And I was told that, I wasn't told by anyone. I listened to a mainstream media report that Pryor was not really in the running anymore. That was their own reporting on, I think that was a Fox News report that I heard. But I don't know if they have any more insight than you or I do. But that Pryor had dropped to 3rd on the list or out of contention because of some of his comments years ago about abortion.
I don't think that's the reason, Mark, but I think you're exactly right, that he has fallen from contention and that he's 3rd out of 3, maybe even falling faster than that. He did interview with Trump about a week and a half ago. Trump did not say that he's his man. He's sort of on a downward trajectory at this point, Bill Pryor. And the real reason is because he's rendered a number of rulings that offend the evangelicals and conservatives on issues other than abortion. Things like transgender, things like forcing a Christian college student to undergo counseling or do things against her faith. He prosecuted Roy Moore and got him removed from office. He's done just a number of things that are offensive to sort of those of us who feel strongly about religious liberty.
Right. Yeah, I didn't know that. See, that's good. That's good information to have. So how about Gorsuch? So if we were looking at the odds at a horse track, the mainstream media's got Gorsuch at the top now. You're telling me he's not pro-life, but
right.
Where does he stand on these other issues like religious liberty and transgender rights and things like that?
Not that good on those either. On transgender, he's ruled in favor of special rights for transgender individuals under federal law, so that's not good. He's also a big supporter of what they call stare decisis. And I can read you a quote from him where he said, quote, "Our duty to follow precedent sometimes requires us to make mistakes." That's what he ruled as a judge. So he's the kind of guy who may say, well, I'm not sure about Roe v. Wade. Maybe it was a mistake, but we got to follow it now. We don't need judges like that in the Supreme Court. We want to get some judges there who clean up their mistakes.
So if you had to pick one of them, if it was President Schlafly sitting up there, would it be the Hardiman, Judge Hardiman?
Of those 3, I would prefer Judge Hardiman. That's who I would pick. And I would say Gorsuch is kind of peaking right now. The media is really puffing him up. They like him precisely because he's not pro-life, precisely because he is the most liberal of the 3. That's why they're puffing him up. But I think his star is starting to fall, and I don't think he's going to get it either. I would say of those 3, Tom Hardiman is the best, and I think he's the most likely to get picked.
Can you give us some background on him?
Yeah, comes from Western Pennsylvania. That's where he was a district court judge, and now he's on the Third Circuit, the same court where Trump's sister has sat for a number of years. All his decisions have been conservative. He has not directly addressed the pro-life issue, but he's had some great Second Amendment rulings. And he also has a great track record in being affirmed by the Supreme Court. Two of his cases went up to the Supreme Court. Both of his decisions were affirmed. And then I think in another case he dissented, and that case went up, and the Supreme Court agreed with his dissent. So he doesn't get a lot of attention. He's kind of a dark horse in the media, but he's got a clean record, and he has been across-the-board conservative and very strong on the Second Amendment issue and also pro-police. And I think Trump is going to like that.
That's good. What you said there may be an outside candidate. Do you have any insight on that, or do you have a name in mind?
Well, there are some other individuals on Trump's list who do have a strong pro-life record. And honestly, I feel that's what Trump needs to do. Because if he comes up with one of these individuals on the list who is kind of a David Souter-like candidate, if you remember him, who has nothing on the abortion issue,
right,
voters are going to be disappointed. He's going to lose support. Trump will lose people in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Missouri, Wisconsin, if he picks someone who does not have a strong pro-life record. So I would urge Trump's team to pick like a Charles Kennedy, who is unquestionably pro-life. There's not even any doubt about it. He's pro-life from the bench. It's 100% slam dunk. It's not even going to be an issue. But if Trump picks someone who's silent on the issue, you're just going to get all these questions. Well, is he pro-life? Trump promised to pick someone pro-life. This is for pro-life. And you're going to get Kellyanne Conway. Well, yeah, we think so. Or, his record speaks for Trump. You look at his record, and there's nothing there. There's nothing there. So I urge Trump's team to pick someone who's got a strong pro-life record, like a Charles Kennedy, or even a completely out-of-the-box pick like Jennifer Elrod, a pro-life woman. I mean, that would be an earthquake.
Where? Tell me about her. Is she on a court now?
Yeah, she's from the Fifth Circuit, U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit. That's Texas. And she's rendered some strong pro-life decisions. She's a bit of a performer as a hobby. She's a singer. And she would just, she has a magnetic personality, and she's got that pro-life record, and she's got the sort of Trump-like qualities that Trump himself has.
Wow.
And Mark, before we run out of time, I want to credit you for being the first to jump on this issue a couple months ago. You were the first show to say, hey, let's look at these candidates. Let's see who's good, who's not so good, because that's what we need to do. And then other shows followed you. We have a vetting process here. This is a 30-year pick. This person sits there for 30 years. We need to look at them. We need to talk about them. Let's discuss them. Who's good, who's not so good.
Andy Schlafly, it's a great point. I appreciate you making that. All of these candidates that we're talking about here are, 45, 50 years old? I mean, that's right. Why you say it's a 30-year pick.
Right. I mean, we had, for the campaign for president, was a year and a half. But
right.
That's only a 4-year pick.
Yeah.
It's a 30-year pick. So I encourage all the audience. And by the way, let me mention, we're going to have an open house here at my mother's center, 7800 Bonham Avenue, Friday night at 6 o'clock. Secretary of State Jay Ashcroft is going to be here, and that's open to the public. 6 o'clock here, 7800 Bonham Avenue in Clayton. We're going to dedicate this as the Phyllis Schlafly Center, and all of your audience is welcome to come here and attend.
Well, that's great news. Yeah, it really is. I appreciate that. Before you go, one thing I thought was interesting that you mentioned is that Donald Trump's kind of floating these couple of names out there to get feedback. Yeah. So do you think this is a trial balloon situation where he's trying to see how much pushback he's going to get from the conservatives, or do you think he's worried about what pushback he's going to get from the left?
That's an excellent point, Mark. Well, maybe a little bit of both. But given the margin of his victory, I think he's looking more at the conservatives, to tell you the truth. He knows the left is going to be against him. He knows the Senate Democrats are going to fight him, no matter whom he picks. I think he's looking to see how conservatives react. And I just heard that the Baptist convention, that's down south, they have vetoed both Pryor and Gorsuch. So he's getting that feedback right now as we speak.
Mm-hmm.
The Baptists are saying, nope. You don't want Pryor or Gorsuch. They're going to cost you votes. And Trump's got to think, well, I'm not going to pick someone who's going to cost me votes.
Good stuff. Andy Schlafly, listen, I appreciate your input on this and your knowledge.
Thank you so much, Mark.
Yep, thank you. And I'll remind people again, as he invited you to the facility there on Bonham Avenue in Clayton. They're going to dedicate it to Phyllis Schlafly on Friday night at 6. I'm sure you can probably go to the Eagle Forum and find out more details on that if it's something you're interested in. Good stuff. See, that's the kind of stuff we need to know. If you're just listening to the mainstream media today, oh, this Gorsuch guy is plenty conservative. I think that people are really going to like Gorsuch. Listen to what we heard earlier. Listen.
Well, a lot of the people who voted them in at the appellate level are actually still there, including people like Senator Feinstein and Senator Schumer. They got votes, people like then Senator Obama. So honestly, these are people who, even at the time of their confirmation, had bipartisan support, and now should have even more so because they have such long and stellar records on the bench of clearly applying the Constitution and laws as written. It's a great sign because I think that's what President Trump promised as a campaign promise. That's part of the reason he won the election. That was a huge issue for voters. And now he's going to make good on that promise by appointing someone who has Justice Scalia's same proven commitment to the principles, to sticking with the Constitution and the laws as passed by our elected representatives, not to legislate from the bench.
A great example there of somebody who sells herself as a conservative legal analyst, but didn't go into the detail that Andy Schlafly did. So that's why you can't always trust what you're hearing on these mainstream media outlets.